Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a look at a real classic in personal development. It's excerpts from Maxwell Maltz's Psycho-Cybernetics. We've got this source material here, and we're pulling out the absolute core insights from this really influential book. It's impacted millions.
It really has. And it's fascinating work, starting from such a practical place. Maltz, he was a plastic surgeon. And his initial observations right there in his practice, that's what really sparked this whole journey of discovery.
Right. He was seeing patients, people who had pretty dramatic physical defects corrected. Things like, a really significant hump nose or maybe a bad facial scar from an accident. And sometimes just fixing that physical thing seemed to trigger this almost instant transformation in their whole personality.
Yeah, like the painfully shy becoming, well, remarkably bold.
Exactly. Or he talks about a salesman whose career was just ruined by a scar, suddenly regaining this massive confidence.
But here's where it gets really puzzling and where his real work started. It didn't always happen that way. Some people, even after these dramatic, visibly successful physical changes, they just seemed stuck in their old insecurities, their old personalities.
They still felt ugly or inadequate,
Yeah.
even with a completely new face.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, the physical scalpel itself.
Uh-huh.
Well, it wasn't the magic ingredient on its own. Something else, something deeper was at work there.
That's it all.
Our mission, then, in this deep dive, is to explore what Maltz uncovered. This incredible power of the self-image. How we saw it functioning like a sophisticated built-in guidance system, and how we could learn to actually direct it.
Yeah, direct it for greater success and well-being. We're pulling directly from the insights he presents in this material.
Let's start right there with that mystery. The changing and sometimes, frustratingly unchanging face.
Yeah,
Because that really is the foundation for everything else.
absolutely. It sets the whole stage.
So Maltz recounts these powerful initial cases. There was
Right.
like the shy kid teased constantly for his big ears, becomes outgoing, confident after surgery.
Right.
The salesman, disfigured in an accident, lost his livelihood, his confidence, gets it all back when the scars were removed. He even mentions how surgery seemed to kind of catalyze this dramatic shift in a hardened criminal's behavior, turned him into a model prisoner almost overnight.
Wow.
For these people, fixing the physical seemed to instantly fix the psychological problem too.
And it makes a kind of intuitive sense, doesn't it? If the obvious external cause of shame or inhibition is gone.
Yeah, the internal problem should just vanish, you'd think.
But then came those baffling exceptions. Maltz shares this story about a duchess with a large, really disfiguring hump nose. She'd suffered from painful shyness, self-consciousness her whole life.
Yeah.
From this beautiful classic rhinoplasty, gave her a nose anyone would admire.
Right.
Yet, she continued to act like an ugly duckling, still couldn't look people in the eye, still just riddled with insecurity.
Despite the physical change being obvious.
Totally obvious. And maybe even more counterintuitive, he had patients who insisted the surgery made no difference at all in their appearance. Even when friends, family, everyone was astonished by the change.
Wow. So showing them photos, like before and after, that didn't help.
Did little good. They'd rationalize it, say things like, well, yeah, the hump is gone, but my nose still looks the same to me.
It's like their internal picture of themselves just completely overrode external reality.
Exactly. It just wouldn't update.
That's just wild to think about. How can someone's internal perception be that powerful, blocking them from seeing a physical change?
Mm-hmm. And it contrasts so sharply with those historical examples Maltz mentions, like the saber scar.
Oh yeah, the German duelists, they'd proudly display them.
Right. That was a physical scar, but it enhanced their self-image, made them feel brave, honorable, didn't diminish it at all.
So that stark difference, it forced Maltz to confront the central question, didn't it?
It had to. The surgical knife itself, it wasn't the agent of psychological change. Something deeper than just the physical alteration was determining the outcome. What was it?
And that, he concluded, that was the self-image. This was his key discovery. Tell us a bit more about it, how he defined that.
Well, he defines the self-image as your concept of the sort of person you are. It's that internal picture, the estimation you hold of yourself. It's the sort of self, you feel you can live with, trust, believe in, and ultimately feel free to express.
Okay.
And he observed that this self-image, it needs to feel adequate and realistic. When it's secure, when it's aligned with a positive self-concept, you feel good,
Right.
self-confident.
Makes sense.
But when it's threatened or it feels inadequate, that's when you experience anxiety, insecurity.
And this realization led him to a really groundbreaking idea, especially for the time, right? Back in the 50s.
Absolutely. He drew on the emerging science of cybernetics.
Right, the science of control and communication systems.
Exactly. And he proposed that the human brain and nervous system, they don't just think, they function like a sophisticated servo mechanism, a goal-striving device.
Like guided missiles
Hmm.
or those early computers they were developing.
Precisely like that. Systems designed to automatically steer towards a specific target, using feedback to correct their course along the way.
So the human system operates in a remarkably similar way.
That's what Maltz saw. It's like a built-in autopilot mechanism designed to hit a target.
Okay.
It operates automatically to achieve that goal. Now, animals, they also have incredibly sophisticated built-in system instincts.
That's sure for survival.
Yeah.
Finding food, avoiding danger, procreation, that stuff.
Exactly. Those are like hardwired targets for them. But humans have something fundamentally different.
Yeah.
And way more powerful.
Which is?
Creative imagination.
Ah, okay. So that's the key differentiator. Animals mostly pursue these preset instinctive goals.
Right.
But humans, we can actually select our goals.
Yeah.
Using our imagination.
Exactly. We can actually direct our own inherent success mechanism towards targets we choose. It's huge.
Wow.
The source material even presents a kind of formula for this. Your conscious mind makes a decision. I want X. Then you use your imagination to vividly communicate that goal, that target, to yourself.
Okay, so you picture it.
You picture it, and this imaginative picture then shapes and influences your self-image.
Right.
And that self-image, that's what sends the work order instructions to your built-in servo mechanism, your automatic system.
So imagination isn't just, dreaming up stories or inventing things.
No, it's not at all.
It's creative in every aspect of our lives and every picture we hold in our minds about ourselves, our capabilities, our future.
Think about some of those powerful quotes the source mentions. Napoleon supposedly said, "Imagination rules the world."
Right.
Philosopher Dougald Stewart called it the great spring of human activity.
Even industrialists, right, like Henry J. Kaiser.
Yeah, incredibly practical people attributing so much success to using creative imagination.
Yeah.
Not just in product design, but in visualizing successful outcomes, successful projects.
The source gives some great vivid examples of this. Imagination applied purposefully in business. Howard Schultzen's Starbucks is one.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
He didn't just imagine selling coffee, did he?
No, he imagined recreating the entire feeling, the romance of Italian espresso bars, but in America. He used imagination to focus on every little detail, the aroma, the music, the specific sounds of the espresso machine.
Creating a full sensory experience designed to program a specific feeling in the customer.
Exactly. Or think about Walt Disney. His whole empire was built on imagination and this incredible attention to detail.
The Blue Bayou restaurant example in Disneyland. That's perfect.
Right. It creates the feeling of being in a Louisiana bayou, not just with scenery.
But with sounds, like crickets and a banjo.
Mm-hmm. And the subtle smell of chicory coffee wafting through the air.
Even blinking fireflies.
Yeah. It's using imagination to craft this total immersive experience that achieves a specific goal, transporting the guest.
And Maltz notes, you can just let this incredible power imagination just dissipate through aimless daydreaming. Or you can apply it purposefully, like focusing sunlight through a magnifying glass. To program your self-image, direct that automatic mechanism towards your chosen goals.
Which brings us right back to how this mechanism works. It's operating automatically, like a machine you are designed to operate.
Right. Steering towards a target using feedback, constantly correcting course.
Right.
Like a guided missile adjusting based on its position relative to the target.
Exactly. And here's the absolutely critical point, the one that explains the Duchess and those other exceptions.
Okay.
This servo mechanism, this powerful internal guidance system, it can be an automatic success mechanism.
Yeah.
Just as powerfully an automatic failure mechanism.
Ooh. Okay, that's key.
Yes. It depends entirely on the marching orders, the programming it receives, primarily through your self-image.
Which is heavily influenced by your imagination.
Precisely.
And why is this so key? Why does that distinction matter so much?
Because, and the source material really hammers this home, the automatic mechanism itself does not reason. It doesn't analyze. It doesn't question the data you feed it.
It just processes and reacts.
It just processes and reacts. It accepts the target. You give it good or bad, helpful or harmful, and it works automatically to achieve it.
Therefore, if you habitually use negative imagination, constantly picturing obstacles, picturing failure, seeing yourself as incapable.
You're essentially programming that powerful mechanism to pursue goals of failure. You're setting failure as the target.
And the source provides some incredibly stark examples of this. The destructive power of the automatic failure mechanism fueled by negative imagination.
It really does. The tragic story of Theodore Hoffman, popular college student, commits suicide. His note revealed this deep inferiority complex, rooted entirely in his perceived ugliness, specifically his long nose. It was a belief system built on childhood teasing, years of negative self-talk. His self-image was so fundamentally mutilated.
By negative imagination.
Yes, that it literally programmed his system towards self-destruction.
That's devastating. And then there's the chilling case of Ellen, the 15-year-old girl with anorexia.
Yeah, weighing only 82 pounds, yet utterly convinced she was fat.
She could rationally know 82 pounds isn't fat.
Right, logically she knew. But her self-image, fueled by this deeply ingrained negative imagination, it completely overrode her reason, her senses, even the basic instinct for self-preservation.
Pulling out her feeding needles.
Pulling out her feeding needles, driven by this internal picture of herself as needing to lose weight.
These cases are just, wow.
Yeah.
They really highlight how intensely a person can magnify perceived flaws with negative imagination, to the point of severe self-harm or even self-destruction.
Mm-hmm. And conversely, how someone can color their strengths with positive imagination to accomplish seemingly impossible things.
This brings us to another really intriguing idea Maltz explores.
Yeah.
The concept that, to some extent, all human beings are hypnotized.
Yes. Hypnotized not necessarily by, a stage performer swinging a watch,
Right.
but by ideas we've accepted uncritically from external sources, parents, teachers, peers, society, or by ideas we've repeated to ourselves so often through that negative imagination, that we've convinced ourselves they're true. They become our reality.
He uses classic hypnosis demonstrations from the text to vividly illustrate this, right?
Yeah.
How profoundly belief can override conscious will, even physical ability.
Exactly. The strong athlete told under hypnosis he cannot lift his hand or a pencil.
And he just can't, despite his physical strength.
He simply cannot. Or the athlete whose grip strength is tested. Then, under hypnosis, he's told he's much stronger than ever before.
And his grip strength actually increases
Why?
dramatically.
Dramatically, yeah.
What's fascinating there is, as the source points out, the hypnotist didn't add any power.
No, not at all.
The physical strength, the capacity to lift the hand, it was all already within them.
Right, but it was blocked, made inaccessible by a belief. The belief instilled by the hypnotist that they couldn't do it.
So the hypnotist essentially dehypnotized them from their own self-limiting ideas in that moment.
I removed
The block.
Exactly. Just for that moment, the limitation was gone.
So if we connect this back to our own lives,
Yeah.
to you listening, it means the ability, the potential, the power you need to achieve your goals.
Mm-hmm.
It's likely already within you,
Yes.
but it might be blocked by those self-limiting beliefs, that internal programming telling you, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy.
Precisely. So curing an inferiority complex, then, it becomes a process of dehypnotizing yourself from those ingrained, false, negative ideas about who you are and what you're capable of.
And the source adds an important caution here about comparisons.
Oh, definitely. Be wary of unfair comparisons. Don't measure yourself against these unrealistic external standards.
Like comparing your writing to Stephen King or...
Your business success to billionaires, or your appearance to carefully curated images of celebrities. It's apples and oranges.
Right.
Your goal should be developing your own unique personality, achieving your own potential, your accomplishments based on your true self-image.
Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we start this process? Dehypnotizing ourselves from negative beliefs, consciously directing that automatic mechanism.
Well, the source offers concrete, practical techniques. One of the very first is relaxation.
Relaxation, why is that so crucial?
It's presented as absolutely key, especially for that dehypnotization process and for forming new beliefs or habits. Maltz suggests our negative beliefs, they often formed without conscious strain or effort, right? Absorbed almost unconsciously over time. Therefore, new positive beliefs must also be formed without tension. Physical relaxation, he argues, naturally leads to mental relaxation. It creates fertile ground for reprogramming the self-image.
He suggests specific mental training exercises in the book.
Yeah, things like finding a comfortable chair, consciously relaxing each part of your body, maybe imagining yourself floating, or vividly recalling a pleasant, deeply relaxing scene from your past.
And what stands out is the emphasis on calling up detailed sensory memories.
Exactly. Not just thinking about the beach.
But feeling the sand, hearing the waves, smelling the salt air, feeling the warmth of the sun.
Yes. Practicing this makes those mental images stronger, and the connection to physical and emotional relaxation becomes much more powerful.
Okay, relaxation is one tool. What's another?
And another essential tool is rational thinking.
Okay.
Maltz describes this as the job of the conscious mind on the job. Its role is to examine incoming messages, whether they come from outside or from your own internal self-talk, and to accept truth while consciously rejecting untruth, to be a gatekeeper for your mind.
He suggests the motto, "It ain't necessarily so."
Yeah, I love that. It's a reminder to question the automatic assumptions we make.
Like how easily we could be bowled over, negatively affected by a friend's casual remark, maybe thoughtless, "You don't look so well."
Right. Or how quickly we automatically interpret a single rejection as definitive proof that we're inferior or unworthy.
That automatic failure mechanism kicking in.
Exactly. The source describes this tendency as a kind of limbic hijacking, where the older, emotional parts of the brain react instantly and override the rational thinking brain
Like the person who hears one comment about their weight.
and immediately plunges into an extreme, unhealthy crash diet, even though their rational mind knows it's not necessary or sustainable.
It becomes vital then to consciously feed that powerful automatic mechanism true facts.
Yes. Not just emotional reactions or unquestioned negative beliefs.
Maltz argues we tend to habitually underestimate ourselves
Great.
and overestimate difficulties.
Very much so. Rational thought allows for these self-coaching sessions, where you can actively challenge irrational conclusions like, well, I failed once at this, so I'm destined to fail again every single time.
It ain't necessarily so.
Exactly.
Okay, so moving from this internal programming work,
Yeah.
how does this affect how we interact with the world? Personality, that kind of thing?
Well, the source defines personality not as something you, acquire from the outside,
Okay.
but as something that is released from within, the free expression of your real, unique self.
Think about babies. Everyone's drawn to them, loves them. Not for what they do or what they have.
But for what they are.
Yeah. Emotionally honest, spontaneous, there's no pretense, no phoniness.
That psychological dictum, be yourself, it sounds simple, but it's profoundly powerful.
But then we run into the obstacle of self-consciousness, or what this source calls others' consciousness.
Ah, yes. That excessive, inhibiting concern about what other people think of you.
This can lead to immense inhibition, right? Awkwardness.
Totally, because you become hyper-focused, trying to consciously control every move, every word, every facial expression, all in an effort to make a good impression.
And paradoxically, that conscious effort blocks the natural, spontaneous, creative self.
Often resulting in a poor impression instead. Trying too hard backfires.
The source highlights James Mangan's technique for curing self-consciousness or stage fright. That's insightful.
It really is. The core idea is stop trying to make an impression. Stop constantly wondering what others are thinking.
Okay, then what?
Instead, recall how you felt when you were completely relaxed, totally yourself. Maybe sharing a meal, easy conversation with Ma and Pa in the kitchen, as the example goes.
Right, that feeling at ease.
And then simply act that way in the current situation. Poise, in this context, is defined as simply disregarding the fears that arise from new or seemingly uncontrollable circumstances.
The source really reinforces the liberating power that comes from genuinely disregarding others' opinions when they're inhibiting you. The anecdote about Dr. Fraser overanalyzing that simple note.
Only to find out it was written by a secretary, meaning nothing deep.
Exactly. It shows how we convince ourselves people are thinking about us, analyzing us way more deeply than they actually are.
Or Maltz's own story, obsessing over a casual remark from someone at a party.
Until his wife points out the person was clearly drunk.
Right. We create mountains out of molehills in our own minds about what others think.
And real-life examples powerfully demonstrate this principle. Jennifer Capriati's incredible comeback in tennis after significant personal struggles.
Yeah, a key turning point for her was deciding it didn't matter what the media or the public believed about her past or her potential.
And, just as importantly, stopping believing bad things about herself.
Yes, she released her real self and potential.
Or Jesse the Body Ventura, winning the Minnesota governorship, defying virtually every expectation.
When people asked, what makes you think you can do that? That classic expression of external doubt.
He essentially disregarded it, believed in his own ability to connect with people, and proved them wrong.
A strong self-image, unburdened by excessive others' consciousness, is an incredibly powerful asset.
So how do we actively cultivate this inner strength, this resilience, so we can disregard those inhibiting doubts and pressures?
Well, the source offers several ideas. including creating a foxhole in your mind.
A foxhole in your mind, where does that come from?
The concept comes from Harry Truman. He said he built this mental decompression chamber where nothing negative could bother him.
Okay.
It's about consciously using imagination to create a mental space of peace, a quiet center within yourself, a refuge from stress and pressure.
It could be imagining a specific place, a memory.
Or just a feeling of calm, yeah. The source mentions examples like a busy CEO finding refuge at the zoo, or a harried mother using nap time as her mental foxhole.
It's about intentionally seeking that inner quiet, carving out that space.
Exactly. Another technique is learning to turn crisis into opportunity, often by simply changing your attitude.
Embracing a nothing-to-lose perspective when faced with potential failure or setback.
Precisely. The source highlights several comebacks and turning points that embody this. Think about George Foreman's astonishing return to boxing.
At an age most fighters are long retired.
Right. He reframed his past setbacks not as defining failures, but as lessons. Lessons that built a unique kind of resilience and determination needed for a second championship run.
He didn't let external opinions about his age or past define his potential.
Not at all. The source touches on others, too, like Frank Sinatra's career resurgences, Regis Philbin's huge success late in his career.
Jimmy Carter's highly regarded post-presidency after a difficult term.
Yeah. Business bankruptcies, rocky relationships. These moments of crisis can be reframed, not as endings.
But as blips, or the setup for a second act that you get to script.
Exactly. Often drawing on the unexpected wisdom gained from the past, turning hindsight into foresight.
And central to setting that success mechanism, cultivating that winning feeling.
Yes. Maltz describes this as the simple secret. When you genuinely feel successful, you automatically act in ways that lead to success. It's a sign your internal machinery is geared towards achieving the goal.
So how do you get that feeling? Especially when you're facing a challenge or you don't feel successful now.
The instruction is to consciously call up, capture, and evoke the feeling of success.
Meaning deliberately recalling past successes.
Yes, and the source emphasizes that any past success will do. Doesn't matter how small.
Like beating a bully in grade school, winning a neighborhood race,
landing a tricky sale, successfully baking a complicated cake, completing a difficult project, anything where you felt that sense of accomplishment, that win.
And this connects back to neuroscientific ideas, enneagrams, action patterns.
Right. Successful experiences create these neural pathways or patterns in the brain. By deliberately recalling the feeling associated with a past success,
You're reactivating those patterns.
you're reactivating them, which brings back not just the memory of the successful action, but the actual feeling that accompanied it.
Okay, so you recall the feeling. Then what?
Then, the key step is to vividly picture your current goal. Whatever it is, public speaking, closing a deal, tackling a new project.
And consciously weld that feeling of past success to this new mental picture.
Exactly. Weld them together in your imagination. The source emphasizes that success breeds success. Start by succeeding in little things, build momentum, build confidence.
But you can accelerate this process.
Significantly, by using your imagination, the theater of the mind creates synthetic successful experiences.
Mentally rehearsing success over and over.
Yes, it builds those positive patterns and generates the winning feeling much faster than just waiting for real-life trial and error, which can be slow and painful.
And a powerful way to manufacture these feelings, build that success-oriented self-image, is through consciously using that phrase.
Ah, yes. I'm the kind of person who...
Right. Maltz gives the example of Les Giblin overcoming his fear of public speaking.
Not by focusing on the fear.
But by telling himself, I'm the kind of person who can talk to groups.
Right. He drew on the winning feeling from past small successes, like talking confidently to friends, and he used that statement to reprogram his self-image.
Which automatically generated the confidence and actions needed for larger audiences.
It's a powerful self-programming tool.
Okay. As we work on building this inner strength, directing our mechanism, the source introduces another vital tool, describing it as a necessary scalpel for emotional scars.
Yes. Forgiveness.
Emotional scars. How do they form, according to this?
They form when we protect our ego from past hurts, perceived injustices, leading us to build these emotional walls or calluses.
Which can isolate us from genuine connection.
Exactly. The cat on a hot stove analogy is perfect. Once burned, the cat avoids the whole kitchen floor, not just the stove. It overgeneralizes the threat.
Or the attorney example, George T. disfigured in an accident.
He built deep emotional walls even after his face was surgically repaired. because he still felt ugly and judged internally. He carried those emotional scars.
And Maltz is very clear about the type of forgiveness needed here.
Right. Very clear. Not a grudging or revengeful forgiveness. Not, I can forgive but not forget.
Because that isn't genuine forgiveness at all.
Not therapeutically. The goal is therapeutic forgiveness.
Yeah.
Complete, genuine, and ideally eventually forgotten, so the emotional wound no longer holds power over you.
Like successful surgery. Cutting out the damaged emotional part entirely, not just bandaging it.
Exactly.
Why is this so difficult, though?
Maltz suggests it's partly because, well, we kind of like our sense of condemnation sometimes. We get a perverse satisfaction from nursing old wounds or feeling morally superior by condemning others. True therapeutic forgiveness isn't about being magnanimous or generous or claiming moral high ground. It's about recognizing at a deeper level that maybe there was nothing truly valid to condemn in the first place, or that holding on to it hurts us more.
It requires a conscious willingness, then, to give up that sense of condemnation, that grievous.
Yeah, almost like amputating a gangrenous limb that's poisoning your system. It takes courage.
The source suggests specific mental training exercises for this, too.
It does. Consciously forgiving others you feel have wronged you. Forgiving yourself for past mistakes or perceived flaws. Actively banishing those hurtful thoughts when they arise. Practicing this daily.
It's work done in the imagination factory. Deliberately changing the internal picture.
Precisely.
Okay, moving beyond just the emotional and mental. The source explores the profound connection between our psychological state and our physical well-being. Mindset, health, aging.
Right. It introduces the research of Dr. Hans Selye on stress and the concept of a life force or adaptation energy.
Our bodies use this energy to cope, heal, stay vital.
Exactly. And critically, the source argues that stress, especially emotional stress, the kind stemming from frustration, anxiety, the automatic failure mechanism,
That consumes this vital adaptation energy.
consumes it significantly, hindering physical healing, accelerating the aging process, while mild positive stress might stimulate the system.
Chronic emotional stress literally makes physical injury worse, wears the body down faster.
That's the argument. It's contrasted with observed rapid healers, patients who recover surprisingly quickly.
And Maltz suggests these individuals are often optimistic, cheerful, positive thinkers.
Yes, people who have strong, compelling reasons or goals they're looking forward to, driving their desire to get well quickly. They're operating from a state of the success mechanism.
And the placebo effect comes in here too.
As incredibly powerful evidence for this mind-body connection, the fact that belief and expectation alone
Effectively setting up a goal image of health in the mind.
can trigger the body's own powerful automatic healing mechanisms, even when the medicine is just a sugar pill.
The servo-mechanism can bring about real, restorative physical changes based purely on belief.
Yeah.
Mental programming.
That's the implication. And connecting this back to aging, if aging is partly the depletion of this adaptation energy,
Then constantly engaging the failure mechanism, living in chronic frustration, anxiety, inadequacy.
is literally making us old before our time, burning through that vital energy unnecessarily.
That's why having something to live for, something meaningful to look forward to, is presented as so crucial for vitality, longevity.
Absolutely. Maltz notes that retiring from life, meaning losing goals, feeling useless, lacking purpose that hastens death, regardless of whether you've retired from a job,
He suggests age isn't just a number based on years.
but is deeply influenced by events and our emotional reactions to them. By mastering these principles of psycho-cybernetics, you can consciously choose your response to adversity at any age.
Helping you stay vibrant, younger than your years, in both mind and body.
That's the potential. Finally, the source shares some truly compelling real-life transformations. Powerful proof of these principles in action.
The story of Silicon is probably the most impactful, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely incredible story. Born with severe birth defects, cleft lip, palate, leading to a mangled appearance, difficult speech.
She was often presumed to be stupid by others, limited to low-paying jobs like being a dishwasher.
But through incredible determination, she worked multiple jobs, paid for speech therapy, numerous plastic surgeries, put herself through school.
And her journey involves some key turning points, finding unexpected encouragement, help from a kind dentist.
And critically, discovering Psycho-Cybernetics, which motivated her to pursue more surgery, yes, but also, importantly, psychological therapy.
She began to test the truths she had accepted about herself, that she was stupid, limited by her background.
And in testing those truths, what did she find?
She found they were lies. She eventually discovered she was a member of Mensa.
Wow.
Her quote is incredibly powerful. "My self-image was terrible, but due to a combination of necessity, an occasional push, and gradually discovering abilities, I moved ahead." And she directly attributes her transformation to the book.
Dr. Maltz's ideas made it possible for me to go from an 88-cent an hour dishwasher to owning my own investment firm.
That's not just a success story, it's a vivid demonstration, overcoming immense external and internal obstacles by fundamentally changing the self-image, directing her own mechanism. The source also briefly mentions the story of a professor saved from flunking out, contemplating suicide after reading the book and applying the principles.
These stories, they aren't just anecdotes. They feel like powerful evidence of the transformative potential here when you consciously apply these ideas.
So bringing it all together, what does this deep dive into psycho-cybernetics really tell us? What's the core takeaway?
Well, the core takeaway feels incredibly clear, doesn't it? The power to achieve your potential, find well-being. It isn't primarily in external circumstances, or physical appearance, or even past trauma. It lies fundamentally in your self-image, and how you consciously or unconsciously program your automatic success or failure mechanism through your imagination and your deeply held beliefs.
The potential, the abilities, the power you need, it's truly within you, waiting to be released. Not by fixing something outside necessarily, but by challenging your self-limiting beliefs and purposefully directing your incredible imagination towards the goals and the kind of person you choose to be.
Which raises an important question, I think, for you, our listener, to consider as you finish this deep dive. Based on these insights from Maxwell Maltz, what is one deeply held truth about yourself, or maybe a challenging situation in your life, that you could start consciously testing, questioning if it ain't necessarily so?
Or maybe, can you identify your "I'm the kind of person who" statement, that desired self-image, that you want to begin living by right now?
Something to think about.
Definitely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the powerful ideas of psycho-cybernetics. We hope this exploration gives you something truly valuable to reflect on and maybe apply in your own journey. Keep digging into what's possible.